Great, thank you. Yes. Oh, you are? Oh, I'll be so lonely. No, I won't. Okay, and I'm going to sit down. I don't usually, but I've been walking all over the city. I actually shopped. Once John left, I went, shopping. So, are there questions? Oh, good. Yes? Yes, he told you this story? That actually, believe it or not, that is true. That is true. But in a way it was a lie because it totally misled him, misled me. I mean, I thought, oh, this is a guy who sends flowers all the time, and isn't this great? That was the last time I got flowers. But it worked. It was successful, so there you are. Yes. I don't know if the rest of you know that story. The way John and I met, he had come up to Seattle to do St. Joan, and he was sitting in his little bed-sitter apartment that they give to actors who are out of town, and he got very depressed. Seattle's a beautiful town, but it rains a lot. And so he thought, I gotta get out of here and go do something. So I was playing at a theater there. I was doing Heartbreak House, which is another Shaw play. And so he said, well, I'll go see Heartbreak House. So he came in and he went way up. He sat right on the aisle, so in case it was bad, he could leave. And I was actually the first person out on stage. And he says, at this point, he was sitting next to an actor named Biff McGuire. I don't know if any of you know Biff. He's a well-known American actor. And he thought to himself, good diction. She speaks well. She's pretty. So at the end of the show, he did stay for the end. He came up to my dressing room because I was sharing it with an actress named Jean Smart. And Gene was in the production that John was going to do. I know this sounds complicated, but I'm getting to a point. And he came to the door and he knocked, and we opened it, and he said, I just wanted to tell you, very nice show, and talked a little bit and so forth, and I said hello and met him. And then he left, and I turned to Jean and I went, She went, he's gay. So then, from that night on, I started to get flowers. I would arrive at the theater, and there would be like a little, not a huge thing, nothing ostentatious, very tasteful. I know, believe it or not, it's just unbelievable. Little sprays of peach gladiolas was the first night. And then the next night there was something else that kind of went with the gladiolas. And then the next night it was something else that would go with it. By the end of the week I had this huge thing of flowers, still didn't know who it was from. But the last night he enclosed a card that just said Tony's with a question mark. Well, Tony's was kind of an actor's hangout in town, pizza place. Typical actress place. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to Tony's. So I went to Tony's, and there was John. And the rest is history. Isn't that true? Yeah, oh, thanks. As a matter of fact, Jan has just I had mentioned to some people that I was willing to show you my pride and joy and the history of our relationship, which is Keegan and Owen. You probably can't see them from there. Can they put them on the, oh, not really. What? Here. What about if I get them in? Oh, you can't. There we go. Can you zoom in? Oh. Well, I could pass them around if anyone's interested. Typical mom. Anyway, if any of you would like to see little cues, here they are. So, next question. Well, you know what you'll see is that the older one is like a dead ringer. Keegan is a dead ringer physically for, yeah, well, you can see that one a little better. Can you? Not really. Anyway, the bigger one, Keegan, looks exactly like John, but his personality is more like me. The little one looks like me, but he's John. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah. Yes? Yeah, yeah, to say the least. Um, yes, we do a lot of things apart. We rarely have worked together. A couple people have said, "Hey, we've noticed you both have Taming of the Shrew on your resumes. Did you do it together?" Yes, we did. And then that was actually shortly after, about 6 months after the Heartbreak House incident. I was already contracted to do Taming of the Shrew at the Seattle Rep. And so John went to the director and said, "Is there any chance that there's a part in it?" Because he wanted to stay up in Seattle. And they said, no, I'm afraid it's all been completely filled. So about a week later, a friend of ours named Gary Donsick, who is now the executive producer of Murphy Brown, dropped out. And he was playing Lucencio. So they came to John and they said, "Would you like to play Lucencio?" And again, the rest is history. And Gary now says he considers himself like the godfather of our children. Yes. Oh, you mustn't ask those things. Actually, well, see, in Seattle, see how things change as you go along. But in Seattle, I had been there about 3 years off and on before John got there. So I was fairly well known in my own right, if I do say so. So people knew me. I mean, the reviewers certainly knew me. They'd seen me a lot. So inevitably they would go, as they always do when they're talking about the blurbs, they'll say, and of course Marnie Mosiman was in it, because that kind of thing. It was a really wild production, really a crazy production. Now, as I remember, mostly it was the production that got reviewed and not individual actors so much. So luckily, when we did Man and Superman, which is much more of a two-hander play, both of us are on stage almost the entire 3 3/4 hours, real like this the whole time. We pretty much both, if they hated John, they hated me. And if they liked me, they liked John. So we didn't, it turned out pretty evenly. It was nice. Yes. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I sort of started out as a singer. I mean, that's the thing that it was obvious that I could do, was I could sing. And so even when I was little, I was kind of hauled out in front of those pictures of me in my pajamas, being hauled out to sing. But after a certain point, and it got me started on stage at a fairly young age, but I got really bored with it early on. It's one of those strange things, I guess it's in your personality, that you either, if things are easy for you, you go, "Oh, this is easy, I'm going to stick to this." Or if it's easy, not easy so much, I don't mean to, well, anyway, it comes naturally in a way. There's something about it that everybody goes, "Oh, you really can do this?" Then there's something in some of us that goes, "I don't want to do that, I want to do this," And especially if then everybody says, "No, don't do that. You're not really very good at that." So I left behind the singing in the musicals because it just, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I know. And I wanted to go over and do straight acting. Also, musicals are somewhat constricting, I find, in comparison, because of the choreography and the music. You're very locked in. So when you're doing long runs of them, they get very boring. I hadn't done one in a long time. So I decided to do a little night music in Los Angeles a couple of years ago. And it's also one of my favorite musicals. I mean, it really is worth doing. Wonderful music and a sophisticated script and so forth. And it was in many ways a wonderful cast. Glynis Johns and John McMartin and some really well-known people. However, about 2 weeks into it, I thought, I can't stand it. It was just driving me crazy because you've got a huge orchestra, you've got so many things riding on it that there's no freedom. It's just absolutely by the numbers. And I got very bored very quickly, and we were in for a long run. It was hard to do. So I find stage, plays, straight plays, give you a lot more freedom to dig deeper or try something different or whatever. And also musicals, I find that the deeper you dig, the worse it gets. One of my first real professional jobs was doing Laurie in Oklahoma. And I was coming in to replace an older actress. At the time I thought, oh, she's way too old to play Laurie. You know, she was probably 28. And, but of course with all the exuberance of youth, I thought, oh, she's too old. And so I thought, I'm going to make it, I don't know how many of you know Oklahoma. It's a peculiarly American piece. But Laurie is supposed to be a girl who was raised as an orphan on the plains and so forth. And so I thought, she's got to be real gutsy, you know, what she would have been really like out plowing the fields and all this stuff. Well, it was awful. It was just awful done that way. I mean, in retrospect, I think. And I think, oh, man, I must have been so bad. Because musicals can't support that kind of real digging, usually. They're light, and they need to be played very light and free. So, anyway, yes. Stage. I'm very comfortable on it. I know it. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time remembering what I was going to say. It's one of those things where you spend hours and hours and hours doing something. You finally get to the point where it just feels natural and good. And I'm not that way on film. I just haven't, there's no way to get the kind of hours on film these days, I don't think, as that you do on stage. And some people just are naturally suited for film. They feel comfortable, they know how they just have an instinct for it. I don't. I'm always dissatisfied. And if I had the chance to really work on it and go, oh, well, I think I could get better, but you don't get that chance. There is no playing around. It's, that's it. So it's the one reason I enjoyed doing the soap opera, because it's the one place that you do get just kind of like hours on camera, and you get to do it, and then you go away, and then you see it, and you go, oh, and then you get to come back and do it again, do a different script, but still get to try some things and see if that works and so forth. So I enjoyed that a lot. Yeah. Oh, sure. Have most of you seen it? Loud as a whisper. It was a script that changed greatly once we went into production. In the original script, when I said I would do it, I actually hadn't even read the whole script because it was not available. It's one of those things where you just jump in and not knowing exactly what it was. But in the original script, I didn't die. So, and I had a really nice scene. What happened was that instead, I can't remember what it was, but the communication got broken between me and Howie, and so we were both left not knowing what to do with ourselves. He no longer could communicate with us, and we had kind of lost our voice, lost our thinking, our minds. We'd lost our minds. So, but they decided in the end it was easier to just kill us. So the second day and then they said, oh, but it'll be okay, it'll be a really dramatic death. I thought, oh, great. It's right. That's right. The special effects guy tells me he still has, every time he sees me, he says, I have your skeleton on my desk. But so it was one of those episodes that you were never sure what was going to happen next. I was never sure what the style of it should be. I really was hoping that we could speak with some sense of independence. That there's a basic problem, I think, with that script, which is that usually when you're shooting something, whoever's talking is who you're seeing on the screen, right? It makes sense. And then somebody else talks and you cut to them. Well, in this case, it wasn't that, because we were talking, but we were speaking somebody else's words. So they could never quite absolutely decide how to do that. And also, ultimately, they wanted us very still and very stiff, I thought, yeah. And originally I had wanted to do some things a little more naturalistic. And I thought it would be interesting to have us even doing things like getting ourselves a cup of coffee and still being able to do it, because it was so second nature to us. We didn't have to, like, zone in, on and to catch the waves. I didn't think it should be that kind of a thing. And ultimately, I went back in to loop some of my lines because they felt they were just too naturalistic, and they wanted them very recited that way. So there certainly wasn't. I always say in that episode I was kind of like a walking voice, or a voice on legs. I mean, it. And of course, the other thing that became the great joke around was that there was the guy, Tom, a friend of mine, who was wisdom, athleticism, I think, learning, scholarship, and all good things. And then you have the other guy who's love and romance and strength and endurance and lust. And then you have woman. It's like I thought, wait a minute, what am I master of? Don't I get any attributes? No. And there originally, as written too, for example, in the scene that takes place in the, I know I should know the name of this room, where they have the conferences, like the conference table. What's the name of that room? Ready room, briefing room. Okay. All the men talked about what should be done, and they all had something to say, and there was this big conversation, and I just sat there. In the original script, they had me doing needlework. True. They had me doing needlework, and when they were all finished talking, I stood up and I said, "Thank you," and I walked out. So what the woman was there for was to do all the nice stuff, to say thank you and can I get you coffee. So interestingly, at the time, the costume designer was a woman, and she and a couple of other of the production people were in the original reading before we were even hired, when they were just sitting around the thing. And they were kind of going like this as it went along. And finally, when they got to the needlework scene, they just all went, wait a minute, you can't do that. So, yeah, exactly. So they did it. However, I still was woman, It isn't as if I'm sorry, guys, but it isn't as if the men were man. They had names. They were wisdom and love. It just, anyway, ultimately it worked out all right, because what happened was the guy who played Lust couldn't talk. So when they realized that, he was a replacement for somebody who had been cast and showed up with mumps. And so the last second he was brought in, and when we started to shoot, they realized he couldn't, he could talk, but it sounded really dumb. He would go like, "I am love and beauty." It was just really, it wasn't quite that bad, but it just didn't work. So all of his lines that didn't have specifically to do with the relationship he had going with Marina, they gave to me. And so that kind of gave me a little more to do. And ultimately, when they brought him back in to loop his whole performance, and then they said, "Thank you very much," and they hired somebody else. So his entire performance is looped, which you can kind of tell. If you watch if you ever want to watch it again, you can sort of see that it's well done, but it's not his voice. So those are the interesting things about that episode that I know. Any other questions? Yeah. Yes. Stuff up. Oh, I never make bloopers. I don't know what to say. I have a great story, though. Probably, I shouldn't say this, but it's almost the world's best theater story. And John would agree with this. That happened to me just recently while I was doing Hay Fever, an Noel Coward play. And this was at a big theater, a big, repertory theater in Los Angeles, where John and I did Man and Superman. And we got to the closing day performance. And the 15-minute call came from the stage manager, and she said, "It's 15 minutes, and David is not here yet." I said, "Oh, well, he'll get here. I mean, he can't not be here." And so then she said, "It's 5 minutes, and David's still not here." So then we started to think, what are we going to do if he doesn't come? This is a theater that for some reason is allowed by equity to go without understudies. And they never get caught. I don't know how exactly they do it, but they don't. Anyway, to make a very long story a little bit shorter, the director was there. Everyone was there because it was the final show. So the director was there, all the designers were there, the artistic director was there. But the director said, "I'm not doing it. I'm not. I can't do it." And he's a real non-actor, so we could tell he just couldn't do it. And I said, "You know what? I know this sounds crazy, but I have a friend out in the audience who would be great in this role." He's an actor. His name is Bruce Gray. Wonderful guy. And everybody went, "Well, he can't do it." And I said, "Well, I don't know, give him the book. Let's go ask him." So the director said, "Oh, I worked with Bruce Gray in New York. I know who he is. I'll go out and see." So meanwhile, it's like 10 minutes after the show is supposed to start, and the director goes out, and Bruce is sitting there. It's, it's a big theater. And he goes up to Bruce, he says, "Hi, Bruce." And he went, "Oh, hi, how are you? Could you come backstage with me for just a minute?" Bruce is like this, and Bruce turns to his friend, and he says, well, I'll see you in a minute. So he comes backstage, and by the time he gets backstage, of course, the director has told him what's up. Bruce sees me in the back hallway by the dressing rooms, and he went, "I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it." So I took him by the hand. I said, "You know what, Bruce? If you do this, you will be the biggest hero in the world. You can't lose. I mean, even if you're terrible, you'll be great." Right? So he said, okay, he jumped. He said, "Okay, I'll do it." Well, he's got women pulling his pants off and putting new ones on, and he's trying to look at the script, and they found the actor's own script, which had been highlighted and everything with his lines and so forth. And so we started talking. The director said, "Okay, your first entrance, you enter up left. There's this huge staircase, tons of props." It was a Noel Coward play, where things are happening a mile a minute. And so he comes out for you said that you've got a tea tray in one hand and a girl in the other. You come down to the bottom of the stairs, you hand off the tea tray, he sits down. So he gets through the first scene, he goes up to the top of the stairs, and he said, "Now, you get up to the top of the stairs, take a slight pause, turn, and say your line, and exit." So he said, I don't know what's going on. I don't even know who's my daughter and who's my son. Somebody come up and they'd say, "I'm your son." I go, "Oh, okay." He just didn't know what was coming next. He'd never seen the play. He'd never read the play. He didn't know. I mean, he'd done Coward before, so he kind of knew the style, sort of, although he didn't know if we were doing it in that style, in the typical, anyway. So he gets to the top of the stairs, and he turns, and he says his line, and he brought the house down. And it's one of those classic things. John has talked about a little bit about, getting the little self-conscious guy off your shoulder by giving yourself something to do. This is the classic case of that. I mean, he didn't have time to think. He just did it. And by the time we got to the biggest scene in the show was the scene between my character and his character. And we didn't have time in the break before it to even to get to the end of the scene. In reading it, to even tell him what to do, So, in the meantime, the leading lady, who is not on in that scene, she says, "Whatever you do, make sure he knows he has to be downstage on the poof, ready to catch me when I throw myself in his lap." It's the button for the whole act. The lights come down, and it has to happen. I said, "Okay, I promise you, Candace, I'll remember, I'll tell him." So in the meantime, we get through all this, and finally I said, we've got to go. I said, "Bruce," a very dear friend, I said, "Bruce, this is a dinner party at our house. And all this whole scene is a scene called Gotcha, which is, I say, blah, 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 gotcha. And then you go, blah, 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 got you. And that's what we do." I said, "The one thing you have to do is kiss me. At the point, you have to bend me down and kiss me. Otherwise, we don't have a scene. There's no way to get around that." So we start into the scene. And he has to pour me a drink, and then he does this and he does that, and we do, spit takes and falling over things. And he's doing very well. We're really getting along. And then he grabs me and he puts me down like this. He's got a drink in one hand, which he didn't realize, of course, he had to get rid of because he wasn't thinking he had that much. Drink in one hand, he's got me like this, and he's got a script, and he has to turn the page. His next line is on the next page. So, and my line was, words, masses and masses of words. And he says, I'm doing the best I can. And again, the house absolutely went bonkers. People leaped up and applauded and went crazy. But anyway, it should have been a short story, very long. We got to the end of the play, and people loved it, and it was a huge success. And it then appeared in the Orange County paper, and then the LA Times picked it up and put it in the paper, the Hollywood Reporter, and then went out over the UP wires. I had people calling me from all over the country saying, you're on the front page of our paper, because this story had gone out, and it was such an incredible story. So anyway, that's my best blooper story. But yes. Oh, that's a whole nother story. This guy, Jamie Cromwell is his name. You might know him. He's been in lots of movies. He's a tall, much taller than John. I mean, I feel like a midget when I'm on stage with John. With this guy, it was like unbelievable. And anyway, he didn't realize that our last show was a matinee. Usually your last show is an evening show. Well, our last show was a matinee because they had to strike the set and get the next set in. And he just didn't know that's when it was. He was over across the way shopping. And one of the wives of one of the other actors was over there as well. And she ran into him and she went, Jamie, what are you doing here? Well, we're just shopping. And she said, well, Tim left for the theater 2 hours ago. And he said, no, we don't have a matinee. She said, yeah, you do. And she said, you've never seen any of the blood just drained out of him completely. He was just like this. His wife started sobbing. I mean, and to give him credit, he came over to the theater, very brave, and he walked in the back door, in the stage door, right as Bruce and I were going on for that big scene. And one of the assistants called up to the booth and said, he's here, should we let him go on? And the director said, no, we have to go with Bruce now. I mean, we've started, we can't switch halfway. So he stuck around and apologized and was very sweet about it. But of course, the problem is that when all this publicity went out, his name went out too, as the guy who didn't show up. Which is too bad, because he's really a professional actor. It was a mistake that anybody could make. But it's an actor's worst nightmare. I mean, it makes me break out in a cold sweat just thinking about it. So, any more questions? Yes. Oh yes, what happened with that? Oh yes, because I didn't tell him, right? And I didn't tell him. We didn't even get to the end of our scene much. I mean, we didn't get through. I didn't tell him. So I'm standing there, and everyone's come on at the end of his and my scene. They're screaming, I slap him and do a spit take, and there's all this stuff. Other people start to run on, and I'm standing there, and I'm sort of calming down because I don't have all that much to do right now. And I went, so I turned. Bruce has found his way straight upstage of me. There's the audience. So I thought, well, I'm just going to turn straight up stage and talk to Bruce. No one will know what I'm doing, right? So I just went, I said, Bruce, you see that puff over there? Go and sit on it. He says, when? I said, now. So he very obediently, the whole play was like this for him, Somebody'd say something, he'd go do it. He didn't know why, but he did it, And people would be giving him cups of tea or, throwing things at him, and he'd duck or not, as the case may be. So he wanders over and he sits on the poof, not knowing why, but very obedient. And so soon here comes Candace down the stairs and does this and throws herself across his lap, and he's, but he catches her, the trooper that he is. So. Any other Q questions? Star Trek questions? Yes. Oh God. I don't really do other people so much as one of the things I've gotten hired for by Disney is some sound-alike voices. When they have, I also do my own voices. Sometimes I'm doing a cartoon series called Prince Valiant, you know, based on the comic books. I play Prince Valiant's mom, you know, and. Let's see, but the two voices that I have done for Disney consistently are voices that were already created, but they were created by stars. Stars don't want to come in all the time, or if they do, one of the people that I do a voice of is for Ava Gabor. So the stories about trying to get Ava to come in to record this stuff are a riot. I mean, you know, they have to send the limo, and they have to have all the things there, and it takes them forever, and they have to have a bowl of ice. I said, what? I don't know if I want to know. Why does she need a bowl of ice? And it's something to, she puts it on parts of her body before she does it. I guess to wake herself up or to come out of her stupor. I don't know what it is. But anyway, it's evidently very difficult. Fun, I think. Everybody enjoys it because she's just so wild, but it's difficult, and when they want to just get it done, they have me come in. And so I did Rescuers Down Under, and at least I did some of it. Actually, I don't know which parts are me and which parts are her. What they do is that they have the cheap person come in and do what they call the scratch track, which is the first recording that they do of it, and then they take that scratch track and do all the animating to that. But ultimately, when they're finished, they want to go back and do a really good recording. And that's when they'll bring the star in. But even then, sometimes they'll have pickups and things because they'll want to change one little thing or a line here or there or whatever. And they don't want to, again, bring the star all the way back in. And Ava's usually off with Merv somewhere, you know, in the Caribbean. So they brought me back in to do other little things. And some of them ended up in the movie. I can't even tell you which ones because I can't tell the difference. And then with Jessica Rabbit, the original, as many of you may know, is one of my faves, Kathleen Turner. And Kathleen is difficult and busy as well. So, and also she just isn't interested in doing. She did the original movie and then hasn't done much else since. So, all the other stuff. You may go, what other stuff? Well, there's a whole series of cartoon shorts that go out in front of some of the Disney features. Tummy Trouble, yeah, is one of them. And there are computer games, and you know, Disney, they market like crazy. There's a whole new part of Disneyland called Toontown that's all about, and there are basically 7 voices in Toontown, Mickey and Minnie and Elsa, and Roger and Jessica. So there's all that kind of thing. And, oh, I suppose you want to hear some, right? Okay. Let me see. I have to, because I don't do imitations. I just, you know. Oh, Björnell, we must go right away. It's no time to lose. That's Ava. We must go. I think it's been a while. Always before I go in to do these things, I have to go back and listen to a tape again to remember what the range is and all the different things. Jessica, I've done a lot more, so I can usually, you got the wrong idea about me, Mr. Valiant. I'm a pawn in this, just like Roger. Can you help me find him? Just name your price, and I'll pay it. So, yes. You know what? We don't. It's terrible. We no, we don't. Well, yes, we go places with the kids. We almost always take them. We were saying this is the first time we've been alone together in years. I mean, years, other than just like a couple of hours here and there. And when we came on this trip, I was saying to John just today as he left, I thought, I said to myself, well, this is either going to work or it's not. It's going to fail miserably, because I didn't even remember what it was like being alone with him. I mean, I thought, what if we don't have anything to talk about? I felt like I was on my first date. It was really weird, and because at home you're like this, and most of the time when you do have a chance to talk, it's usually, how come you didn't pick up the kids at the dinner? Or how come you didn't what's so you don't have. It's just so. Anyway, just so you know, we had the most wonderful time. It was unbelievable. We're both like beaming. John said as he left, he said, now let's just see if we can keep any of this when we go home. I don't know. We don't relax much. John doesn't enjoy relaxing. No, I mean, he doesn't have any hobbies. I think he's probably said that, right? I mean, he just doesn't. Yeah, the only time he kind of relaxes is when he goes out sailing. And he loves to go out sailing, but there's not much time for it, and the boys hate going sailing. But it's just a classic, whatever your dad really wants to do, you don't want to do. So it is difficult. There's no question. I relax more. I think I'm more capable of relaxing. When we were in Hawaii, this was long ago, where John asked me to marry him. We had rented a camper van, one of those, like, we call them Winnebagos. I don't know what you call them. Yeah? Is that okay? So, and we were camped on a beach, and there was no one there. It was like our own private beach. It was just idyllic, and we'd been there for maybe 6 or 7 days, and it was morning, and I was fixing breakfast or doing something, and John had gone off down to the beach, and he came back about 15 minutes later, and he came to the door of the van, and I said, what's wrong? He said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And I thought, oh my God, sit down. Okay, what, tell me what happened. He said, well, I was sitting there on the beach. I was just sitting, and I was looking out at the waves, and everything was okay, and then suddenly everything kind of went, whew. And I went, John, you're relaxed. And he went, you're right, that's it, I'm relaxed. So it's a very strange feeling for him. Anyway. What? No, I don't think so. But anyway. He has endless mental energy. Yeah, his mind is just like this all the time. So it's an interesting, because I think eventually you have to slow it down, and because what happens is that if it does this, I'm not speaking of John personally here now. This is just in general, one feels that when the mind starts spinning too much, it's a little bit hard to come in and focus on things that need to be focused on. So we make a good pair in that way, because he sees the big picture all the time. He's constantly scanning. I mean, he's just, he walks down to the house, he can tell you which windows are open, which plants need watering, and I'm completely focused. I can be driving along, and he can be on the side of the road waving wildly, and I won't even see him. I mean, or I'm reading a book and the phone rings. I don't hear it. I literally don't hear it. So I'm like this, and John's like this, which is exactly the way our boys are. Keegan's like this, and Owen's like this. Yes. Anything else? Yeah. I haven't really. In comparison to what you guys have seen, I haven't seen anything. I see them every once in a while. I think I probably see them more than John does, because the boys like to watch it. They don't like sit down every time, but every once in a while, if they turn on the TV and they don't know what to watch, almost always there'll be a Star Trek on, so they'll flip to the Star Trek. 'Cause it's on all the time at home. It's on. Sorry. It's on every single day. which I didn't even know. I mean, people told me this. I didn't know it was. It's on every day. As a matter of fact, I think it's on twice a day because you get both Deep Space and Star Trek. So it's a little much, but I don't know. Maybe. No. Okay. Yes. Yes. Do they ride it? No. Keegan will sometimes make suggestions. He'll have like, Keegan's funny. I have another little story actually about the Loud as a Whisper episode. John was out of town when it was aired the first time, and I think Keegan was maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. You guys know better. What was the second season? What year? 88. So he was 4. And Owen was obviously just a little baby. He was probably asleep on the couch next to us. So we're sitting and we're watching and like this. I'm like, so the episode is over. And I turned to Keegan and I said, so how do you think Mom did? He went, not so good, Mom. I went, oh, God. Well, what do you think I did wrong? He said, shouldn't have gone down to that planet, Mom. It was a big mistake. Which, actually, when I thought about it, not only is that a good, kind of like an overall comment, it's a good acting comment. Don't take parts in which you get killed. Because people think of you and your character as kind of the same, and you've obviously lost. I mean, you lost, And when you lose as a character, you sort of lose as an actor, too. I mean, one of the wonderful things about John's and his character is that he always wins. I mean, and everybody always wants to win. They just think he's great. So, they become somewhat inseparable, so, yes. Oh, well, I don't know what it is from, I have no idea really what it is from the producer's point of view. What I was told was, when they were replacing Gates in the second season, wasn't it? Between the first and second season, because that's how this episode actually came up for me. I went in originally for that, in terms of that replacement. And then I went in again, and then I met with Rick, and then I went in again. And ultimately, when they had me back in the last time, Rick talked to me, and he said, we're thinking that, I guess it was Gene actually who had the idea. And I said to him, I think it's a great idea, that they bring on Diana, because they were concerned that, this is the story, they were concerned that I'm a little bit like Gates, and that it would be seen as a replacement. They were trying to, like how they do in soap operas. Suddenly it's a different actor and they're supposed to be the same person. And they didn't want to risk that. I mean, they just didn't want to do that. They thought, as long as we have the opportunity, let's pick somebody totally and go into a whole thing of, older woman on the space station and what it brings up all kinds of opportunities to deal with different kinds of storylines, which I agreed with. I mean, I said, listen, I'm sorry to not do it, but I completely understand. I think it's a good decision. I still think it was a good decision. I know people don't think it worked out necessarily, but I think it was a good decision. So anyway, when that happened, then they said, well, the first thing that comes around on the show, we'll have you in, or have you do, or whatever. And so the first thing that came up was a little tiny role, and Rick, I guess, ultimately said, let's do that. Let's not waste that. But then the next one was woman. And I think the intention was that I don't hold any grudge at all. I think nobody knew how insignificant it would seem. I mean, I think it was considered a... And you never know how often good female roles are going to come up on Star Trek. They're few and far between. I don't know why. I mean, I always I won't go. I'll just do a little bit of my platform speech on this whole thing. I don't know how many of you know this kind of thing, but let's have a guessing game. How many of you have an idea of the percentage of women, of the percentage of jobs in Screen Actors Guild, which covers commercials, TV, movies. How many voiceovers, voice stuff? How many of those jobs go to women? Out of 100 jobs, how many would be women? Okay, 8%. Anybody else want to say? 5. Well, you guys are better than most Americans will say. And actually, I asked some people over here, too. Most Americans will say, well, 50%. And I go, what do you see on TV? And they go, well, we watch TV. I said, well, think about it. Well, they don't think about it. It's 17%. It's not quite as bad as you thought. But then, of course, that includes commercials and voiceovers and things. And in commercials, it's a little more even, because you have all those moms, right? Yeah. And also, then do you know the age bracket that women make the most money in SAG? Well, first, men, I'll let you know. Men make the most money in their careers, if they're in SAG, between the ages of 45 and 60. Okay? Now, when do women make the most money? Well, anyone else? You know what? You guys aren't even close on this one. Between 1 and 5. True. Because what happens in that case is that little girls, excuse me, fellas, but little girls are much easier to work with, right? And so we're smarter, and we're just ahead of boys at those ages. I mean, little girls are just easier to work with on a set, usually, than little boys. I mean, listen, I have 2 little boys who I love dearly, and I'll put them up against any girls anywhere. But they like to use little girls. If they've got a 5-year-old in a script, they'd rather use a 5-year-old girl than a 5-year-old boy. So that's why. But after that, it all changes. And after 40, it's true. I mean, it's just absurd. There are no jobs for women. There just aren't. And it just doesn't make any sense, because the world, of course, when you look at the world, it doesn't look like that. But it isn't even changing. People say, oh, well, it's changed. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. If anything, it's gotten worse. Yes? John's back. That's right.
What it was, that one's died. Hold on. Okay. Whoops.
He didn't want us to talk about that. See? Boy, I'll tell you. That's right. I can shout it out. I am woman, hear me roar. Which is, of course, going back to, that's always what I always, in one take I did. When I did Loud as a Whisper, my first line was, I am woman. And one time, on one take, I thought, fuck it, I'm going to, I am woman, hear me roar. It doesn't, that's right. And I always think, why is that? And I know they think they're not doing that. I know they're proud of themselves for what they're doing. And it maybe is better than the average, but even so, I still look, see, as someone who's trying to work in the business, I still look at the numbers. I mean, you've got a regular cast that still isn't 50-50. It's not anywhere near 50-50. Why is that? Why, next generation, they'll go, well, we have a lot of women. Yeah, you do, but why isn't it 50-50? What? The writers are mostly men, but even when it's written by a woman, Thelma and Louise, for example. Everybody says, there's a woman's movie. Well, how many women were in Thelma and Louise, too? Actually, there were three. There were three women. Yes. What a thought. No. I went to his house for dinner. Does that count? Gene was actually always very sweet to me. I mean, he was just, he was a nice guy. I mean, nobody really knew who I was. I mean, because when John first started doing Star Trek, when he was first cast, I was this big. I mean, I was... oh, I'm not even close. Here, this... No. Well, I didn't look like that, let me tell you. I was like enormous. And then when John was actually on the set and started to shoot, I had just had Owen. You've heard that whole story, right? About... Oh, God. Well, and as a matter of fact, they came over to our house to... here's a good men's story. I will tell you, it's a mean story because it isn't really what was intended, I know, but it's kind of fun. I had just had Owen. He was like maybe 2 or 3 days old. And I had Keegan, too. And Patrick and the director, Corey. Corey, isn't it Corey Allen? Yeah, Corey Allen came over to rehearse with John, just the three of them, because John was going off to Japan immediately, and they wanted to get a little rehearsal in before he left. So they came, and they sat out on our patio, and I served coffee and cake. I had made a cake for them and stuff. So, and then I would run in and take care of the baby, and then they'd be discussing the heavy things and the issues about the script. And so their image of me was, hi, hi. So when I was actually submitted as an actress, it was kind of like, whoa. But to give Star Trek credit, usually when that happens, when you're somebody's wife, they don't give you the time of day. Doesn't matter how many times they see you or how many times somebody says, oh, no, she really is an actress. That's what she does. They don't change their mind. But at Star Trek, they did. I mean, Rick was very open to it. So I know that takes a lot. That doesn't always happen. Yeah. Well, John has, I don't, it isn't particularly annoying to me, and it causes us, as a family, endless amusement. But most people would consider it extremely annoying. And John has wonderful body noises. What can I say? It's a frequent source of great laughter around the table. And the boys love it. I mean, it's the world's oldest joke. And it's funny in any language. I mean, somebody goes, and everybody laughs. It doesn't matter when it is. And, John, he buys little machines, too, little things that make those noises. And I can remember one night he brought it to the table and he started doing it, and the boys were like, Dad? And then, of course, they realized what it was, and then they all started doing it. We never finished dinner. We were all on the floor, absolutely on the floor. So... That's probably what would be considered his most annoying habit. Oh, the other one would be he dreams wildly. I mean, truly wildly. He gets up and his dreams are always he's rescuing somebody, usually me, from some horrible thing that's going to happen, right? And one of the classics is where I was lying on a highway, in the middle of the highway, and there was a semi-truck coming. And he was trying to get me to get off the highway, and I wouldn't move. He was so angry. And so he flips me off the bed, like this. And then, but this happens relatively consistently. He'll make me get up. Get up, get up, get out, get out, get out, get out. God, damn it, get out of the bed. So I finally have learned that you can't I used to try to go, John, you're asleep. It's okay, go back to bed. But he won't listen. The easiest thing to do is you get up out of bed and you go and you stand in the corner for a while and you go, okay, can I come back to bed now? And then, then he'll kind of wake up enough to realize that it was a dream, and then he'll let me come back to bed. But I mean, he's been known to pull the mattress off the bed, completely off the bed. He's peed off the bed. Pretty wild. He swears they're dreams. I don't know. Yes. Did he say that he really gets into character? Oh, no, he doesn't. Oh, I'm surprised you read that. This is one of those things they make up. No, he's not that kind of actor. I mean, I do know actors like that. But I think it's just I think it's pretentious, you know what. To do that, there's no need, usually. I mean, if you were filming something round the clock, I mean, I'm sure the guys who went to do, what was the Heart of Darkness movie? What? Apocalypse. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they got a little cuckoo, but they were away from home. They were living that life, and that would be a different thing. But basically, it's not a problem. No. I mean, when you're not happy with your work, it's a different thing. It isn't so much that your character comes home, but that things aren't going right comes home. In the same way that I'm sure all of you, if things aren't going right at your work, it's a little hard not to feel that way at home, right? Oh, I'm glad to hear you're all the same as we are. Ah, yes. Oh. No. They've never done that to John or I. They certainly do it to other people all the time. One of the things that I think is true, the people that I know personally, who you see on the covers of those kinds of magazines and all, my experience with them is that they cultivate that. They work to kind of have themselves be celebrities. Now, that they do it because they think it's going to help their career. But you really have to work at that kind of thing. You have to pay a publicist and all this, and then they get you in National Enquirer. But that really hasn't happened, certainly hasn't happened to me, and hasn't really happened to John much either. The stories that they would write about him, for example, when he was doing the soap, were always very nice stories. But see, John has never been considered. I don't know why, but I actually noticed it last night too, on the I'm Too Sexy tape. John wasn't on it. Now, I have to say, no, this is completely honest. I don't get it. I don't know why he isn't. I mean, my eyes are the same as anybody else's. But I think he's tremendously sexy. I mean, I think he really exudes not only a kind of a charisma and a real strong presence, but I also, now maybe that's just me, maybe I'm weird, but I find that very sexy. Sensual, yeah. I mean, he's not like, it isn't like Mark Singer, who just can't stop. I mean, it's like, Mark, stop. I mean, just don't, it's just, he's, the interest. Which is fun. I mean, I like him. He's fun, but at the same time, he's working that all the time. John doesn't work it at all, that whole kind of thing. And yet I still, maybe because of that, I find him sexier. But, as I say, he's not considered in that category at all. So I think maybe because of that reason, we don't get that, we don't ever have a problem with that kind of publicity or media. He has one nutso fan that we had to worry about for a while, but yeah, that is something that's really creepy, and it's very strange. It's very hard to figure out, and it's just one of those things. You do what you can to be careful and wise, and then what can you do after that? And you don't have to be famous to be stalked anyway, so it's happening all the time to just folks. So yeah. Oh, well, now that you mention it. No, not in this context. I'll tell you one of the reasons is that I feel that I've been afforded here by all of you and Peter and everyone some real respect in my own right. So I don't have a problem. When I'm not, it is hard. Yeah. And there are times when you go to events or whatever, and people come up to you, you walk in the door and they come up and they go, like this, because you're not anybody. And one time, I was getting an award in Los Angeles. One of our big awards that are sort of like the Tony Awards are called the Los Angeles Drama Critics Awards. And they're kind of a big deal. Anyway, one year, I was nominated, and the presenters were Julie Andrews and Robert Preston, and, it was kind of a glittery occasion. Now, on those occasions in Los Angeles, all those kinds of occasions, openings of plays, anything like that, all the paparazzi are on the sidewalk. I don't think you probably have that here. It's really obnoxious. And they are waiting for those people to step out of the car, right? And they flash and they call your names so that you look at them and you get the picture. Anyway, we came walking up because John refuses to stop in front of the door and use a valet. He just won't do it. And so we parked and we walked up. And it was my night, but all they wanted to do, they kept pushing me out of the way so they could get pictures of John. And John very graciously, said, hey, wait a minute, no, you guys, she's the one that's getting, So, and the same thing happened opening night of, little night music, that kind of thing. And those things it's just one of those things. It's just, you understand them. And some of the paparazzi are very nice. They know both of us, and they will then say my name as well, and all that kind of thing. But, and then every once in a while, John did a voiceover for Disney just recently on the new Mickey Mouse short. It's the first one they've done in 40 years. And he plays a new character as a monkey, I guess, I think. I don't know, monkey, an evil monkey doctor, evil scientist, Dr. Monkey. And so we happen to have the same theatrical agent, and she called and she said, it was so great. She said, when they called to say that they wanted to use John, they said, and we understand that he's Marnie Mosiman's husband. So that was great. That was fun. Okay. Anything else? Any other last little tidbits? Should I do what John did? The last question you can either vote on whether you want me to answer it or not. I don't even have a last question. Oh. Yes? Yes. 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 For both of us, well, as actors, you have you have a very different view. Maybe not. Anyway, we feel we have a different view on life, which is that you're kind of ready to go at any minute. You don't want any baggage around, like a house and a mortgage and all that kind of stuff, because you never know what's going to happen next. And what's most important is to be ready for that next job, wherever it might be. And so, however, we both knew we wanted children. I sort of wanted them down the road a ways. I wasn't that, but John said, no, we have to have them now. I said, now? Yes, this is it. I still felt like I had plenty of time. Of course, I look back on it now and I think, boy, it's really good we had them then. I felt much younger than I was. But once... Right. Oh, a little sidelight. One of the, after these plays, there are some nights when you come out and talk to the audience. And after the Coward show, one night I came out and I sat down, and the first thing that was asked, somebody said, "How old are you?" Can you imagine? So I told them. I said, and everybody went, "Oh." So I said, whoa, I'm going to lie? What difference does it make? You asked a rather tasteless question, and I'm still going to give you an honest answer. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. We both kind of went, oh, we have kids. We better make our lives much more stable. which meant basically that I didn't go away to theater to do theater jobs. I haven't been out of town, on trips, but I haven't been out of town to do a job since. And I very rarely do take a job that's like an 8-show-a-week job. It has to be a really good job. And that's just the way it goes. I don't know any cases where basically it's the very few cases where it's the man who does more of that than the woman. It just happens. And especially in our case, it happened because John, because he's a man, for one thing, maybe the only thing, he has a much likelier chance of having a much better career that then can support our family, which is to both of us the most important thing. So, and I don't think we either of us realized how important that would be. I mean, it's so clear to me that I just went, how could I have not understood that? But I mean, either of us would do absolutely anything for those boys. So, that took us by surprise. Kind of takes your breath away, doesn't it? No. We talked about it we entertained the idea for a long time. John especially would have liked another one. 2 seems about right. 2 seems about right to me.
Well, I hope you had a nice little chat. Now, as you remember I said to you earlier on how John half jokingly looked me straight in the eye and said, now, the next Australian convention I do, remember we talked about the fact that when you get a guest, there's all these conditions. Next time we get John to come to a convention, I'm putting it in the contract that he is not allowed to come unless he brings Marnie with him.
I have a great idea. You can write the contract for me and insist I bring John.
Hey, that's an idea, yeah. Will you all keep a big round of applause for Marnie? She's been a wonderful lady all weekend. Now,
here is what I try to feel when I'm living with a personality like my darling husband, whom you all know as Q. What a fool I was! What a dominated fool to think you were the earth and sky. What a fool I was! What an addle-pated fool! What a modern adult was I! No, my finger-clicking friend, you are not the beginning and the end. There'll be spring every year without Q. England still will be here without you. There'll be fruit on the tree and a shore by the sea. There'll be Vegemite and tea without Q. Art and music will thrive without Q. Somehow the Broncos will survive without Q. And there still will be sand on that beach up in Cannes. Even Queensland will stand without Q. We can do without Q. You, dear friend, who talk so well, you can go to Hobart, Herbertsville, Herberton, and Hayman. They will still rule the land without you. His rocks still will stand without you. And the whole human race will have peace for a space without Q. All right, you asked for it. Because I'm going to have to take you out of this wonderful mood that everyone is in. Because the only song we've prepared after this is one that deals a little bit more with the reality of what it would be like without our darling Hugh.